Guys, how's it going? So today's vlog is about my mom's sexual assault, but except I'm not going to be doing any talking. You're going to hear my mom's story and what sort of struggles that she had gone through. So here it is.
My name is Carol Henson. I was in the U.S. Air Force between 1973 to 1979. I went to basic training for 8 weeks. From there, I went to Chanute Air Force Base in Illinois. There, I went to mechanics school, more specifically, aerospace ground equipment. I graduated top of my class, and from there, I went to my assigned base, Eglin Air Force Base, Hurlburt Field, where I worked on the flight line. While there, I was sexually assaulted by my supervisor, which was witnessed by the men in the hangar. Afterwards, I don't remember if it was the same day, the next day, or if that was a Friday, if it was a Monday. I went to my female commander. In 1974, 73 and 1974, we still had what was called a Women's Air Force, WAC. And I went to her, I told her what happened. Then she spoke to the base commander, a gentleman. Don't remember his name, he was my base commander at the time. And then I and the supervisor who assaulted me went to the base commander's office. He spoke to the supervisor, but not to me. I asked the female commander, my WAC commander, if anything had been done. I was told there was an Article 15 and that he was fined. I also was immediately reassigned to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. I was not given any written orders, and when I asked about them, they said they would follow me to Lackland. I never did get those orders, but I did go to Lackland Air Force Base, where I could no longer be a mechanic because there was no flight line. I was reassigned to the administrative division. I went to school there, graduated, and worked in crypto. Also, when I left Eglin Air Force Base, I asked about packing up and how do I go about getting there. They said, don't worry, we will pack the stuff up for you and it will follow you to Lackland, which it did. I never saw my orders, but I did get my belongings from Eglin Air Force Base. I then worked in crypto as an administrative specialist, and then went into physical therapy. I, to this day, remain with PTSD and cannot discuss what happened other than with a therapist that I had for 4 years on the civilian side. She was very beneficial to me. Prior to my leaving for San Antonio, Texas, Lackland Air Force Base, and before I went to the base commander's office, my supervisor is the one who sexually assaulted me and who also who told me that he and I had to go to the base commander for a talk. He made me walk with him to the base commander's office, at which point my supervisor said to me, if I go down, you go down. My response to him, while looking at his many stripes compared to my 2 stripes, is I told him he had a lot more to lose than I did. When I left the Air Force, I chose to leave because I could no longer handle being in the Air Force. And On the way out, I was given something called a DD 214, which I read. In it, it showed my basic training. Then there was an 11-month gap between Chanute Air Force Base did not show up on there at all. Eglin Air Force Base did not show up on there at all, which created an 11-month gap. It did show the administrative specialty at Lackland and picked up from there, and nothing else was skipped. When I asked the gentleman at the time about the 11-month gap and why it did not show, my education as a mechanic did not show up, nor my station at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, he said if it's not on there, it didn't happen. I wasn't particularly concerned about it because, as I said, that was in 1979 and I had no idea what that meant. I realize now that there was a tremendous cover-up, which may be why I never got a copy of my orders, which is why it never showed my completed education at Chanute Air Force Base and my 4-month stint at Eglin Air Force Base, Hurlburt Field in the panhandle of Florida. I have been left with PTSD. I thought that as I got older that would ease up. If anything, it's gotten worse. I do have nightmares, but I also have something called night terrors. I take medication for that, which they keep having to increase because the night terrors just get worse. It helps for a while and then they come back. I take medicine for depression, but I can't, I don't do well in social settings. My daughter is the one that has to go out and do my shopping. On occasion, I manage to go with her, but not alone.
At 3 in the morning.
At 2 or 3 in the morning when there's fewer people around. My night terrors are so bad that I will be screaming and not wake up, but my daughter wakes me up, and she's learned since she was a child, because she's heard my night terrors since she can remember, is that not only does she have to wake me up, but I have to get up, because if I go back into my sleep, I go back into the night terrors. As I said, the older I get, the worse it gets. I have an ESA dog who I think has more PTSD than I do. Just that both my kids grew up knowing that they could not lay down next to me and put their legs over my legs. My oldest daughter, Tammy, learned that we were playing around and she put her hand over my mouth, at which point I screamed bloody murder and grabbed her hand and jerked it away. She wasn't that old, maybe 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. And I made it so clear that she was never ever to put her hand over my mouth. Neither kid could do anything to mess with my legs or pin my arms down, no matter how small they were. When I took naps with both of them, I couldn't be in the middle. They had to take turns who laid next to me. I couldn't be sandwiched. And I have not had a successful relationship with anybody. I did get married once, and that ended abysmally. In a divorce, and I have not even considered trying to work. I never had a job for more than a year at the most. I did become a registered nurse, but I found out that only home health, hospice in particular, was how I did things best because I didn't have to deal with my peers and I did not have to deal with supervisors, but maybe for a couple of hours once a week at a meeting. And then I was left on my own to do my work the best that I knew how, and I could deal with the patients and the families for the most part. But they were always the ones in need, not me. So I had a good relationship with my patients. It wasn't until I took my last job and I started having a severe inability to sleep. I've always had that, not always, but as an adult. I've had difficulty sleeping as an adult since this incident, but it got so severe that I ended up having seizures. I take a sleeping medication now, which helps me sleep. If it weren't for that, I wouldn't sleep. The reason I couldn't, finally had a part-time home health position in Florida. However, there were days I couldn't go to work, but I was able to call in and cancel because it was what they call temp positions. So I never had a position for more than a couple of months at a time. And, but even that got to be too difficult for me. And so I only went in maybe 1 or 2 days a week to go to the patient's home. But it just got so difficult towards the end that I just couldn't do it anymore. While when I went to the VA for mental health, that was a losing cause. Number one, you don't get weekly appointments. At first, they said they'd try and get me in every 6 weeks. I knew that wasn't going to work. For a short, brief period of time, I was getting in more frequently, but I was told that therapist had to go. So they gave me another therapist. I must have talked to 3 or 4 different therapists, and every time I had to re-explain my background, which is reliving it over and over and over. Also, it was very obvious that these people did not understand, it's not that they didn't understand, they were trying to find the easy way out, which was they wanted to put me in group therapy, which is totally unexplainable. Because they knew how I was socially. They knew how I felt about being around other people. I sure as heck was not going to describe my sexual assault in front of a group of men, to a man. And they do have women's groups now, but I'm not going to discuss this with women either. This is not something I discuss with people anymore. I have shut the doors to that now. I cannot handle it anymore. I relived it and relived it and relived it and relived it. The VA does not have the number of people they need, nor can they keep the people that they do have, so that vets have a consistent care plan. It just doesn't work through the VA. And throwing money at the VA isn't going to help because they haven't yet recognized what the very basic problem is. And until they have real accountability, it's just good money after bad. I did go into physical therapy in the Air Force prior to my leaving. But what I did there were 27 wards at Lackland Air Force Base Hospital. I only worked in the clinic for a short period of time before there was an opening for the wandering physical therapy tech. That allowed me just to go into the clinic long enough to drop my stuff off, pick up the stuff that I needed, and then I went upstairs and didn't leave until after the clinic was closed. So out of sight, out of mind has always seemed to be my modus of operandi. I was having a hard time even with that. But when I went into nursing, I tried hospital nursing, and I could not handle it. I couldn't get on or understand my peers. I had difficulty with my supervisors. I found out that by doing home health, I rarely saw my supervisors and almost never saw my peers. I also would work for more than one home health company at a time, which meant that nobody would see me come in or out for more than 2 or 3 days a week. And again, it would just be to drop off paperwork, turn around, and leave. Again, out of sight, out of mind. That's the way it worked for me. If they didn't see me, they didn't think of me, they didn't think to call me, I was just left to my own devices to work with my home patients. And for the most part, I had no problems with that until towards the end, and I could no longer do it. The lack of sleep, the anxiety, the PTSD, it just continued to get worse. And since my sexual assault, I just little by little by little have pulled away from society completely. I don't go to services anymore. I just don't want to see anybody anymore. I don't want to have to worry anymore. I want to be left alone, is how I feel. I just want to be left alone now. If it weren't for the sleeping medicine, I wouldn't sleep. If it weren't for the medicine I take for the night terrors, that would be a continual problem. Now, as they up the dose, it's occasional. I tolerate it for a while, and then the night terrors start coming back, and they have to increase it again.
Right. We're good.
I just want to be left alone by people. I don't want to see people. I don't want to do things with people. I just want to be left alone.
So that'd be the end of this vlog. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. And not only that, if you or someone who you know has gone through a similar situation, please comment below or email me. I'd really like to hear what you have to say. Again, thanks for watching.